Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.
Hi, everyone. Lee Brecheen, Louisiana Sports Scouting Report. Hope everybody's having a great day. And just our show's going to be packed with information again. It's going to be about the NFL Draft. We're going to talk about the Saints. We're going to talk about LSU. We're going to talk about Tulane, ULL of Lafayette, also Louisiana Tech. We're going to talk about how the SEC fared in the NFL Draft, who did good, who didn't do good. We're also going to talk about our team of the week, our spotlight of the week, high school of the week is Alexandria High School, as it's called Ash High School in North Louisiana, but Alexandria High School coached by Thomas Bachman. We're going to go ahead and get into the show with our first segment and go ahead and start talking about the NFL Draft. I'm sure many Louisiana people watched the draft over 3 days. I did. This is probably at least 35 years watching the draft, maybe a little longer. Been watching it since I was a little kid. Got into scouting. Just love it. You know, I love to see where all these Louisiana players are going to go, where the players that played at Louisiana colleges are going to go that aren't natives from here. It really doesn't matter. And where all the players go that play in the college football world, you know, any school. LSU, you know, incredible. 14 players drafted, which ties the most players ever drafted, ties Ohio State. I thought they were going to break it. I thought they were going to have 16. Thad Moss, still shocked he didn't go in the 7 rounds. I mean, he's at least a 5th rounder. I don't care if he's recovering from an injury or not. That I just can't. Sometimes we just can't explain things. And I also thought LSU would get one more player in the draft after Thad Moss, which would make 16. I thought either Derek Dillon or Braden Fajuco would go as the 16th. But anyway, I mean, look, 14 players, the most ever drafted by LSU for the school record, the most ever from the SEC, untying Alabama, and the most ever tied with Ohio State. What an accomplishment. I mean, Ed Orgeron's going to be able to put this on all these flyers all over for spring, fall, promoting. I'm sure the cover will have, you know, the most players drafted, you know, ever with all the players. I mean, that's a huge sell for LSU. I mean, they just won the national championship. They had the Heisman Trophy winner, the Thorpe winner with Delpit. The offensive line won the Moore Award for the best offense, and then they win the draft. You know, they're going to have, you know, 18 kids in NFL camps just from this school, just from this class. That's just, it's incredible to imagine that basically every senior on LSU's roster that was not a walk-on will be in a camp. Every one. That's a first for LSU. Think of that. Every senior in the class that's not a walk-on will be in an NFL camp. I've been following LSU football since the late 70s. I don't ever remember that, ever. Every position had one player drafted, which is incredible for LSU. That means all 22 positions, at least one person from that position was drafted. The most offensive linemen drafted for LSU in one draft since 1962. 3 O-linemen drafted. Could have had 4 or 5, but again, we'll take what happened. It was an incredible 3 days of LSU football. I mean, if you're a fan of LSU. I do believe this, and, you know, watching the draft, again, we have a lot of people that are very knowledgeable that have watched the draft like me, you know, for years. And one thing that the draft has evolved to, it's gotten worse, but if you skip the combine, that's a no-no. If you skip a Senior Bowl, that is a no-no. And I hope kids learn from this. I hope agents stop telling players to skip Senior Bowls and the combine, because if you're not the first pick in the draft like Joe Burrow, you've got to go show your potential in front of these scouts. They don't see enough tape. Joe Burrow had 60 touchdowns. He had enough tape. He was going to be the first pick. He didn't have to run the 40. He didn't have to throw the ball. But Christian Fulton, I really believe, would have been a first-round pick if he would have played in the Senior Bowl. But you got to do that because they want you out there competing with everybody in that class and seeing what you can do in front of them. And Thad Moss, who I feel for, but think he signed as a free agent with the right team, the Redskins, he's got a chance to start as an undrafted rookie. I think the coronavirus hurt Thad Moss because he was going to be held up for the LSU Pro Days, which never happened. And I think that hurt a lot of kids. But if you're a high school coach listening to this or a sports agent, please, it's my opinion, never encourage the kid to skip out on a Senior Bowl, which, first of all, is a privilege, and the Combine. You know, and LSU sent 16 players to the Combine, 14 drafted. So you're not guaranteed to get drafted, but you got to go, unless you're the first pick. Joe Burrow could get away with it. I mean, he had 60 touchdowns. The guy was a Heisman Trophy winner every week, highlight film every play. The greatest season ever for a quarterback in college football. But I hope kids learn from this because the year before, which the NFL scouts do not like, don't skip out on a bowl game. If you're not guaranteed to be a first-round pick, don't skip out on your bowl game. First of all, I'm old school. Finish the season with your teammates. You're not guaranteed to be in the first round. There's over 50 to 60 kids every year that get first-round grades. And every round is always 50 to 60 per round that get grades. You only have 32 picks in a round. So please attend the Senior Bowl. Please, go attend the Combine. Play in your bowl game. Finish the race. Maybe I'm just old school, but if you watched the draft yesterday, it's proof that you've got to attend these meetings. You've got to be around these scouts and these teams because they want to get to know you, and they want to see what you can do. They also want to see what you can't do. But what a draft for LSU. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about Tulane, ULL, and Louisiana Tech, how they did in the draft. They had a really good draft, great draft for those three programs. We'll be right back with segment 2.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back, Lee Brecheen with the Sports Scouting Report. We're going to talk about ULL. UL, the Raging Cajuns in Lafayette. I think the Raging Cajuns had their best draft in the history of the school for, one draft. When you think about it, when you go back to the three greatest players to probably ever play for ULL, USL, I'm thinking Orlando Thomas, the late Orlando Thomas, who passed away way too young from Crowley, was a great free safety for the Minnesota Vikings. Actually, he's one of the top 5 all-time free safeties ever for Minnesota. Brandon Stokely, who went to Como High School in Lafayette, walked on basically to play for his late dad, Nelson Stokely, at USL. Brandon Stokely wasn't drafted. Most people figured he was because he played 14 years in the NFL. And then Jake Delhomme from Turlings Catholic, who basically almost walked on to USL, wasn't heavily recruited, took the Carolina Panthers to the Super Bowl, played long time in the NFL. Great guy. Jake Delhomme was not a first-rounder. But yesterday and the day before, ULL of Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, put 2 offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds. Robert Hunt went in the second round to the Miami Dolphins. He's a Texas native. And then Kevin Dotson, one of ours from Plaquemine, Louisiana, went in the third round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have 2 pro prospects coming back to UL on the offensive line that this past season had these 2 draft picks. So UL could make a statement that they had one of the best offensive lines in 2019 in the United States. Check them out. Watch it. It's true. It's legit. They have a couple of kids from Neville High School that are going to be high NFL draft picks in the next 2 years. One has a chance to come out next year in 2021. Another kid that was drafted by the NFL from ULL, Raymond Calais from Cecilia High School. I'm real happy for Raymond. I mean, he alternated with 2 backs at USL. I always say USL, I mean ULL. 4'40", 5'10", about 190 pounds, could return punts or kicks, a great athlete. He shared the ball with Mitchell from Erath and also Regis from Shaw. I mean, UL had a serious offense in 2019. When you look at Louisiana Tech, they had a great draft too. And I think the thing about the Texters, man, these guys, they don't get the credit for the talent that they have. But Louisiana Tech had one of the best defensive backfields in the United States in 2018. This draft, they had Janarius Sneed go in the draft from Minden High School. I was a huge fan of Janarius Sneed. I said back then that he could play for LSU. And sure enough, Sneed went to Louisiana Tech, had a great career, went pro as a junior, will play safety, probably strong or free in the NFL. Great hitter, runs a 4.5, 6'1", about 190. Has a lot of ability. And then you also have for Louisiana Tech, Amik Robertson from Thibodeau High School, a cornerback that was a phenomenal football player at Thibodeau. I mean, he's 5'8", who cares? 175, he was a Tyrann Mathieu for Tech. And he was like that at Thibodeau. He played running back, corner, and receiver at Thibodeau, and some quarterback. And I remember LSU did not pull the trigger on him. They came close. Orgeron almost took him. But Amik went in round 4 to the Raiders and will probably start as a rookie. He's a phenomenal athlete. If he's 6 foot tall, he's a first-round pick. But who cares? He'll be in the NFL as a starter anyway. Tulane had a really good draft. They had 2 players drafted. Darnell Mooney, a great receiver, 5'11", about 175, from Alabama, not from Louisiana. Smooth player, great hands, flawlessly runs 4.5, looks 4.4 on a football field. But Darnell Mooney went in round 5. What a pick. I mean, he can move. He's good hands, be a great slot receiver for the NFL. In round 7, Tulane had another kid drafted, Vicarious Keys. Round 7 to the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, not a native of Louisiana, Mississippi native. Under the radar recruit that Tulane developed and will be a good player. If he can make the team, if not, he might make the practice squad. Some other natives in the NFL from Louisiana that were drafted, Cameron Dantzler from St. Thomas Aquinas. I remember seeing Cameron Dantzler play for St. Thomas Aquinas as a quarterback. He signs with Mississippi State, moves to corner, and becomes all SEC. LSU did not offer him, but again, I happened to see this kid in person, great athlete, and he evolved into a great corner. 6'1", about 190. Third round, Minnesota Vikings, he'll play with Justin Jefferson. But Cameron Dantzler, Amik Robertson, And Janaris Sneed proves that Louisiana produces big-time DBs. That's 3 DBs from Louisiana that did not play for LSU that went in the draft. So people, a lot of people said those 2 classes that came out that year were weak, and I always tell people they're not weak just because they don't go to LSU. Some great free agents from Louisiana that I'm shocked were not drafted. Dejon Harris, a linebacker from John Ehret High School at Arkansas, had over 300 tackles in his career. Deshaun Harris was the quarterback at John Ehret when they played in the Superdome against Zachary for the state title. Him and Michael Divinity were teammates. And Dejon was also a linebacker. He's 6 foot, about 240, runs 4.6. And the Patriots are getting a steal as a free agent. Jamar Smith, the quarterback from Louisiana Tech, from Mississippi, is going to the Patriots as a free agent. That's intriguing. Jalen Bates, a defensive end from Kaplan High School, is going to the NFL. Not signed yet, but he played at Colorado State and Arizona State. Shaquem Carter from Kentwood did not get drafted at Alabama, a DB. Hasn't signed yet with anybody as a free agent. Will somewhere. Christian Campbell from Ponchatoula will be a free agent. Played at Georgia Tech. Was a quarterback at Ponchatoula. Christian Manteneau, a linebacker from Louisiana Tech, is not from Louisiana, but still he's a free agent. He's going to Pittsburgh. Colton Prater, a guard center from Texas A&M, played at at Airline High School in Bossier City. Colton will sign with someone soon. Kurt Merritt, who went to Newman and Destrehan, a receiver, played at Arkansas State, will be signing a free agent contract in the next day or two. Stephen Guidry, I was shocked, did not get drafted at Mississippi State. I mentioned it on my show the week before. 6'4", 190, 4'4". Stephen hasn't been picked up yet. I'm sure he will, but what a great talent. Played at Livonia High School. Darius Bradwell, a running back from Tulane, 6'1", 230 from Georgia. Great back, big-time back. Probably didn't get drafted because he was hurt most of his senior year, but this is a talented kid. Runs a 4.5 at 230, 6'1". It's going to the Los Angeles Chargers as a free agent. This is a steal. Jaquazius Dancy, running back from Louisiana Tech, will be a free agent. Shea Patterson from Michigan did not get picked up, played at Calvary Baptist. Kind of shocked. I mean, he'd make a great camp quarterback and could develop. Douglas Coleman from Zachary High School was a great corner at Texas Tech, will be a free agent as well. That's the free agents from Louisiana and the draft picks from Louisiana. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about our high school spotlight of the week, Alexandria High School.
Like what you hear? Well, make sure to check out our website, lafootballmagazine.com, for all of the latest recruiting information statewide. This week, we catch up with Tiger linebacker Jacoby Brock, Zachary wide receiver Chris Hilton, and we also will provide NFL draft coverage on all the Louisiana Natives and college football players selected. So if you want to get your recruiting fix, go to lafootballmagazine.com today.
Welcome back, segment 3. Our spotlight of the week, our high school of the week. We always cover a high school in Louisiana. Every show is Ash High School. They call it Ash High School if you live in North Louisiana. If you live in South Louisiana, you say Alexandria High School. They're really the talented, from a football standpoint, I would also say track and baseball. That's the school in the Alexandria area over the last 35, 40 years. Coach Butch Stoker was a great coach there. The late Butch Stoker did a lot of great things with Alexandria, and now Thomas Bachman has done an incredible job. Even though Alexandria High School hasn't been to the Superdome, what he's done with the program is incredible. Last year, they're very close to getting to the state title game, but they are playing every big-time program in the state. I mean, when you have to play Ruston in Class 5A on the public side, and you got to play Ruston twice, regular season and the playoffs, you got to play Neville, you got to play a talent at Pineville, you got to play probably a Ouachita every other year. Every team they play is loaded. And Alexandria had a phenomenal season in 2019. They had a really good season in 2018. He did a good job in 2017. And in 2020, Ash is going to be a dominant team. They've got a great quarterback coming back. They've got a great tight end back. They're going to be good on the O-line. They got a great defense. They're going to be young on defense. They lose Jacoby and Guillory, who signed with LSU, that I think is going to be an All-American. He's one of the best I've seen since Glenn Dorsey. You know, he's not just a stat guy. He's not just a measurable guy. Jacoby and Guillory was the hardest, toughest, strongest D lineman I've seen play outside of Glenn Dorsey in 30 years. 6'2", legit. Might be a little taller, maybe a little 6'2.5", about 320 put together. Will make a great nose guard, could play any of the techniques. So if you say play DN, he can do it. Like I said, he's the most talented D lineman outside of Glenn Dorsey. And I've seen some good ones. Kyle Williams was very good at Ruston. Chad Lavallee at Marksville. Marquise Hill, the late Marquise Hill, De La Salle. Marcus Spears was pretty good at Southern Lab. I can go on, but this guy, but Ash will be good. They're very talented at DB and receiver, even though they lost a lot of talent from the year before. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm pulling for Thomas Bachman and Ash to get to the Superdome in 2020 because it's been years. And this program is so close. And I wish them well. I wish that they can get through the semis and crack it into the state championship game. They would be very fun to watch because they're very good in the trenches. Got big linemen, they got really good skill people, and they got a good quarterback and a very good coaching staff. I happened to see Jacoby and Guillory when he was a true freshman, and Clark, who signed with Virginia, Bud Clark, was the corner. They both started as a freshman, their first game ever on varsity. And I happened to go to that game against Ouachita Christian, at Ouachita Christian. And that's when I saw Jacoby and Bud Clark and was like, whoa, these two guys can play. You know, sometimes you see kids play and you go, hey, they got potential. They might evolve. No, those guys were like polished and high effort. Their first varsity game. But shout out to Thomas Bachman and his staff. What a great high school. I mean, it's known for Craig Nall. Craig Nall was a great quarterback, ended up finishing at Northwestern State, signed with LSU. They've had some great kickers come out of the program. Chris Bonial was a great kicker in the NFL, Dallas Cowboys. He's now a coach right now in the NFL. You've got a lot of great players that have come out of that program over the years that have done a great job. We're going to go take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the New Orleans Saints, their draft, and talk about how they did. We'll be right back.
If you are a parent that needs a highlight tape and you need consulting advice on how to deal with the recruiting process, please contact Lee Brecheen, who has had over 30 years of experience dealing with college coaches and making highlight tapes all over the country. For more information, please contact Lee Brecheen at lbrecheen@aol.com. That is lbrecheen@aol.com. LBRECHEEN@aol.com.
Welcome back, Lee Brecheen with the Sports Scouting Report. Hope everybody's having a great day. Be sure, if you're a fan of the show, be sure to tell other people about us, and download a show. When you download a show, then you create stats for us so we can go raise money to keep this going and grow it. And the bigger we get, the better it'll get. And that's the goal. We're going to make this thing special. Right now, I'm doing it solo because of the coronavirus. And, again, I hope you enjoy the show and just download any show, and that you can get the updates by doing that. It'll say download, and just download one of them, and then you'll be in the system as getting all the shows in the future. But let's go ahead and talk about the Saints. They didn't have a lot of picks, and they don't really need a lot. Look, I'm a diehard Saints fan. I always talk about being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, which, hey, I got to be honest. I'm just an honest guy. I grew up at the age of 7 because Terry Bradshaw was my hero. And then I love Mel Blount, Mean Joe Green. When you see that Coca-Cola commercial, just, you're done, right? They won 4 Super Bowls. When I was growing up, the Saints had Archie Manning. Loved him, man. Just me and my dad would pull for Archie Manning. And they just had bad teams. And Archie would get sacked way too much and stay hurt. If you're a true Saints fan, you remember what I'm saying. And we supported the Saints when they couldn't win a football game. But the Steelers was the winning team growing up, and those were my 2 teams. And then here comes one of the greatest coaches in the NFL ever, Coach Payton for the Saints, and then they get Drew Brees from San Diego Chargers. It's been a great marriage. They won a Super Bowl, and I hope they win another one with Drew Brees. And that's what the draft, I think, is about. If I'm just looking at it, just just being a sports person and just evaluator, this is a draft based on what does Drew Brees need to win a Super Bowl? What do they need right now? That was the draft you saw yesterday. It wasn't a draft about let's do something for 3 years from now. It's about what do they need right now. And I think if you watch this past season, Peyton was not going to take a chance of having one injury on the O-line mess up the whole year. And so he went out and got him a swing guy, meaning a guy that could play center or guard in case there's an injury, or he could start and beat out another person at guard, or if the center gets hurt, everything's going to be okay. And Drew Brees needs his offensive line to be functioning for 16 games. Or the rule's going to be, 17 now. But drafting Cesar Ruiz from Michigan, who's a New Jersey native, by the way, that Ed Orgeron tried to sign out of high school. LSU was one of his top 7 schools. He went to IMG Academy. They weren't able to get him here for a visit, but they did try to sign him. He's a great center. He's a strong, big, quick, powerful man. They did turn down a lot of great stuff in the draft to get him, but they needed a center guard. They needed a dual swing guy that could, for Drew Brees. And I love the pick. Number 2, the defense needs another linebacker because of injuries. Not because they're not talented at linebacker. They just need another great linebacker. You can't have enough linebackers. And I think Zach Bond from Wisconsin is a great pick for them, a great Mike linebacker that can be a guy that calls the plays, and he's a run stopper. Because in the NFL, in this league that they have Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta, those 3 teams love to run the ball. They have receivers, but they love to pound the ball. You got McCaffrey with Carolina. Tampa Bay's got a lot of backs coming up, and Atlanta's pretty good at running back too. So, you need a run stopper. I love the 2 picks. The 3rd round pick, I'm not so big on it, but I know what they're doing. They love tight ends. They're not happy with their other tight ends. And the Saints use the tight ends so much that they need 3 reliable tight ends. And right now, they probably only have 1. And so I think this Adam Troutman from Dayton, they love the tall tight end. They love the big tight end that can run. And hopefully he'll catch the ball well at this level. The Saints, you can't doubt them when they draft small college players. They're pretty good at it. Now, the kind of the head scratcher here is round 7. The Saints trade back into the draft to get a 7th round pick to take Tommy Stevens, who transferred from Penn State to Mississippi State for his senior year and really had a horrible year. But Tommy Stevens was a heck of a quarterback at Penn State. And he was just hurt at Mississippi State. He never got healed. And he tried to come back and play hurt, and it was even worse. And I think what Peyton and them are doing is like, how can we lose going with a 7th-round pick? We're looking at the future. And we're going to bring this guy in and work him out. He runs a 4.6. He's 6'5", about 240. He's a big guy that can run. He's built like Ben Roethlisberger from the Steelers. And he might not make it. I mean, this is the chance you take. And then they sign Jameis Winston to a 1-year contract from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jameis Winston, this is not going to be popular with a lot of the Saints fans. But let me tell you something. Peyton's a genius. And they faced Tampa Bay twice a year for the last, 7 years that Jameis was the quarterback? He knows this kid's very talented. And he's still very young. It's just maybe they just needed for the team to get, Winston needed a new tone, and maybe Tampa needed a new beginning. Sometimes it works that way. And I want to use an example. If you follow the NFL, like I do, and I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that do follow the NFL. Back in the early 70s, they had a guy by the name of Jim Plunkett that went to the New England Patriots. He was the first pick in the draft. This is when New England was horrible. Jim Plunkett was the first pick out of the draft from Stanford College. Was horrible. But he was on a bad team. And the Raiders pick him up. And he goes to 2 or 3 Super Bowls? They won 2 Super Bowls with Plunkett? I mean, it was incredible. I mean, the guy was incredible. He didn't look like a pro player, but he was incredible. One of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. So you can't really give up on somebody just because they're not doing well where they are. Maybe it's not a good fit. And it was really during transition years with Tampa Bay, too. I'm just saying, Winston's very talented. And the Saints are trying to see if they can develop maybe a veteran. Needs a new chance, new home. You bring Tommy Stevens in, so the following year, maybe you have something. If not, you trade your cards in and you draft a quarterback in the next draft, and you trade up. You get a high draft pick in the 2021 draft, and you try and get the best quarterback. But I really like the Saints draft. I think it's about now, because they have some great players. I mean, they have a lot of great players. They have a lot of weapons that, if they're all healthy, they're phenomenal on offense. Their offensive line was really good, except they needed another swing guy inside. Their defense has got some great players on it, some great DBs. They could free agency. The Saints always do great in free agency, too. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about players that didn't get drafted, that are LSU-related or state-related, and also what college football teams didn't do very well at all. I mean, namely Texas A&M. Not a good look for Jimbo Fisher. They did not do very well. We'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back. Hope everybody's doing great. I want to shout out to all our medical personnel, from doctors to medical assistants to nurses. Thank you for the great jobs that you're doing, saving lives and working without any sleep all over the country, all over America, all over the United States, all over everywhere. Appreciate what you do. And just keep doing it. We appreciate the job that you're doing out there, all our healthcare workers and everybody. I hope everybody's healthy and safe. And I hope we enjoyed the NFL draft. I did. I really enjoyed it, man. It was so refreshing to watch something that wasn't 1978. That's a replay. I'm jogging and running a lot and still working out of the house. We're still working on Louisiana Football Magazine that's going to come out. This will be our 24th year. I started the first issue out of my apartment with a loan from my banker, Warren Crone, back then. I want to give Warren Crone a big shout out. He gave me my first loan 24 years ago. Had to pay him back in a couple of months from a line of credit, and we've been, as a family, running this thing, me and my mom, Dolores Thompson and Carl Thompson. Jace Lejeune has been with us now 4 years. We've had many interns work for us that are now doing great in life. We've had a lot of people that have been editors over the years and got bigger jobs. And everybody that we've had in our magazines in the NFL now, if you've been in the NFL since 97, since the magazine started, you've either been on our cover or in the magazine as in the pros, or now you're working a full-time job somewhere. But be sure to think of us if you're a former reader or a former player or former coach. Support the magazine. Go to lafootballmagazine.com. You can also watch our TV show on our YouTube called Louisiana Football TV Magazine. Just hit YouTube and you can watch our shows from 2019. And again, be sure to download a podcast. We really want to make this special, but be sure to download a podcast. That helps us grow. And but let's go ahead and go back to the NFL draft. I want to talk about teams that really did horrible in the NFL draft. And it just goes to show you college teams that win, those players are getting drafted higher than college teams that are not doing well. And it's a trend that you're seeing. And you're seeing it. If you watched the NFL draft yesterday or the day before or the first day, and you hear any of these pro coaches talk, the one thing they all have in common is they're all saying, we want a guy from a championship. We want to talk to coaches that these guys are winning. We want winning in our franchise. We want kids that know how to win. And that's why recruiting is so important. If you're a mom and dad, that's where it's going if you want to play in the NFL. Not everybody's going to play in the NFL. But you hear it over and over with these pro coaches. They want championship players. They want kids that put in the work and know how to win, and that's what they want in their franchise. That's what they want with their teams. And there's a lot of good football players that didn't go as high as they should have, but maybe they weren't on a winning team. Maybe they don't have enough tape because they're not watching certain teams. And that's what I'm hearing. Just hear these guys talk. But one team that really didn't do very well in the NFL draft, and it's going to be tough on the coach because you're selling what these pro coaches think of your program and what they think of what you're telling them about guys that can play. One is Texas A&M. I mean, Jimbo Fisher's going into year 3. First of all, they need to compete for championships, so that seat's going to get pretty hot. 2, he had 4 underclassmen go pro this year. None of them drafted. That's not good. Contrary Davis, one of his best receivers, all SEC junior, did not get drafted. Kendrick Rogers, 6'5", receiver, junior. That's the one that caught 3 TDs on LSU in 18 in the 200-point game. That's the one that A&M won. He caught the winning touchdown. He caught 3 touchdowns. Kendrick Rogers did not get drafted. He's a junior. Charles Oliver, DB. A DB with the last name of Renfro, a junior, was an all-SEC DB. Did not get drafted. Colton Prater from Airline, Bossier City, did not get drafted. There were more players from the University of Minnesota get drafted than the Mississippi schools in the SEC and A&M combined. Minnesota had 5 players drafted. Yeah, Minnesota. 5 players drafted with a third of the budget. And no talent in Minnesota, maybe 4 kids that are D1. Mississippi State had a ton of talent that did not get drafted. I mean, I'm shocked. shocked at some of the players from Mississippi State. I mean, I talked about Stephen Guidry, the quarterback that's now, he barely went in the 7th round to the Saints. Leo Lewis, remember the big guy that was the investigation between LSU and Ole Miss, Mississippi State? He was Player of the Year in Mississippi. Think of this. Leo Lewis comes out of Brookhaven, Mississippi. He's the number 1 linebacker in the country, number 1 player in Mississippi. Signs with Mississippi State. He doesn't get drafted. Patrick Queen wasn't even one of the top 25 players in Louisiana from Livonia. He's a first-round linebacker. Recruiting doesn't always work the way it's planned, right? Nick Coe, a DN from Auburn, did not get drafted. Very shocked with that. Dontavius Jackson, remember him from Texas, was a linebacker that Ed Orgeron tried to sign his first year out of Houston, signed with Florida State, did not get drafted. Tyler Clark from Georgia, big-time D tackle, did not get drafted. The number 1 player on the Missouri team, I thought, their linebacker, Cal Garrett, did not get drafted. The DB from Kentwood that LSU tried to sign, Shaquem Carter, did not get drafted. Benito Jones, the big D tackle from Ole Miss, did not get drafted. Very shocking. Remember Matt Womack that was committed to LSU from the state of Mississippi, a big offensive tackle, signed with Alabama, did not get drafted. Darrell Williams, all SEC offensive lineman, Mississippi State, did not get drafted. One of the best tight ends in the league that caught a bunch of passes on LSU, Jared Pinkney at Vanderbilt, did not get drafted. The best tight end in the SEC was suspended for fighting with coaches. Shayon O'Grady did not get drafted, but a lot of it had to do with, fighting with the coaching staff that was fired, and then he was suspended for the rest of the season. I also want to go ahead and end the show with acknowledging my condolences to the Marino Cassim family, the former longtime Southern athletic director and 2-time head coach at Southern. Marino Cassim was called the godfather of the SWAC. He was at Alcorn State and Southern University over 4 decades. Twice he was head coach at Southern University, once, and then the other time he was head coach between 2 coaches because Gerald Kimball had resigned and he had to become the coach as the AD, and then the next coach became Pete Richardson. Marino was 85 years old, 4 decades in the SWAC. He will be missed, and he's a legend, Hall of Famer. Shout out to their family, Marino Cassim's family, and Southern University and Alcorn State. Want to go ahead and leave on that note, and just hope you enjoy the show. Be sure to tune in again when we'll have our new show this Friday. This Friday, we will have another high school spotlight of the week. We'll also talk more about the colleges, and I'm going to talk about the 2021 draft for LSU. I've got 26 names that'll be potential pro prospects. Think of that, 26 more. That's counting juniors. That potentially could be NFL draft picks next year, and there's going to be over 60 NFL players in camps from LSU this coming year. We're going to talk about that on our next show. And we're also going to talk about on our next show, who is wide receiver U for Louisiana. We're going to talk about all the great receivers that came out of Louisiana over the years, going back to the 40s and 50s at Southern, LSU, Grambling, ULL, Louisiana Tech, ULM, Tulane, Nichols, McNeese, all the great receivers that came out. Who is wide receiver U? We'll talk about that. We'll hope everybody has a great week. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.